back to the Turnbuckle Tavern's YouTube page. Today, we have a great matchup, and it's Dean Ambrose versus Jon Moxley. Before we get into that, make sure you guys click on the link in the description below, subscribe to the YouTube page, follow the link to our Twitter, Instagram, Pro Wrestling Tees, order a t-shirt, follow it to our podcast page, subscribe, rate, and review. Click the bell up in the corner so you know when we're coming back with more videos. But today's matchup, Moxley versus Ambrose.
Man.
I mean, yeah. So a lot of people are saying, I've heard people talk about how, Ambrose was better or Moxley's better. I mean, in my opinion, I think Mox wins.
I guess it depends on what flavor of wrestling you like.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of what he did. I mean, when the Shield first came around, obviously I was a big fan of what they were doing. They did that right. They came through the crowd. They were a unit. They were they just, I don't know. They dominated.
I think when you compare, who's better, Jon Moxley or Dean Ambrose? Well, you have to caveat that by saying which Dean Ambrose.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Dean Ambrose in the Shield? Or are we talking about Dean Ambrose with a gas mask on his face and a potted plant and goofy bullshit, a hot dog vendor bullshit? Like, which one are we talking about?
I mean, if we're talking about the Shield, Ambrose and Moxley, I feel like they have those two have a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
There's a
They're a lot more in common.
Right. But if we're talking Mitch the Plant, silly Ambrose after Shield, post Shield days, I'm not a fan of that. Definitely not a fan.
I hated that character.
Yeah.
Because when the Shield first came out, Ambrose was the one I liked.
Yeah.
He reminded me of almost like a Piper meets Pillman type guy.
Yeah, he was definitely a loose cannon, that's for sure.
And you could tell that he was, he was out of the Performance Center. He had spent time in NXT, but there was still that indie vibe to him.
Yeah.
And once they broke up and he went singles, that I slowly got to the point where I hated Dean Ambrose. I hated him. The only word that I would describe him as when he was at, the last couple years of his run in WWE was wacky.
Yeah.
He was that wacky guy.
And even when he went away and they brought him back with Seth Rollins, when Seth Rollins brought out they just did that wrong. Like,
well, if you're going to use him, then I'm going to use a lunatic. They just killed the pop.
Yeah.
Just play his music.
Yep. They
took his pop away.
And I think even at that point though, I think he was pretty much just done with WWE. I think they may have offered him a contract to come back. And I think they even tried with all this pomp and circumstance to get him to stay by doing this, farewell. And they even televised the last house show match. But he was done. I think he knew how silly it was.
It was goofy ass bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, if you're someone who likes that Dean Ambrose, that late era Dean Ambrose, it sums up what kind of wrestling you like. Now, he's always been good, but he was wrestling that standard WWE style.
Yeah.
All their stuff is very stock.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Nothing, there's no differences. Everyone kind of has that stock style you get put into when you're wrestling for Vince McMahon.
Right.
And his character was just goofball bullshit. And now with Moxley, I feel with Jon Moxley, from the moment he came out at Double or Nothing, I feel like we've seen a guy who you see the fire back in him.
For sure.
Regardless if you like the character or not, you can tell that he is inspired.
Yeah.
And when I see someone who looks inspired and looks passionate about what they're doing, it instantly makes me gravitate to them a little more.
Yeah.
And
You can tell.
I felt like with Dean, you could tell he didn't want to be there.
Right. Yeah. You could tell he didn't want to be there. He didn't have that you can see the passion in him in AEW. You can't, he did not have that. It was, way more just, he just almost like he didn't care in WWE. So,
Yeah. And
and
it
you
says
can
a lot.
tell in AEW in his promos how much he cares now.
Right. And it says a lot that he won the PWI Top 500. He was number 1 this year as
Right.
Jon Moxley.
Yeah.
Jon Moxley, to me, when I look at Jon Moxley, I look at Dean Ambrose. Jon Moxley is a main eventer. He
Yeah.
has an aura about him that he's a top guy. Dean never, even though he got the belt, he always felt like a placeholder to me. I never felt like he was the guy.
No, they didn't put their stock into him for sure. He was never going to be the face of that company.
Now, a lot of criticism I've heard from fans who are more in the Dean Ambrose camp. They say that all Jon Moxley matches are just nothing but hardcore CZW deathmatch style, like, and that none of his matches matter because none of those hardcore matches pop because everything he does is in that style. So they don't connect with Jon Moxley matches and they prefer Dean Ambrose matches. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, what matches what matches is he having in AEW that's the hardcore death matches?
I can think of obviously the lights out match. That's the big one. The lights out match with Kenny Omega. That's the one where they went through the mattress of barbed wire.
Right.
Okay.
But other than that, I mean, they've just been solid matches.
Well, we had the no holds barred empty arena match with Jake Hager, but that was kind of a more of a straight match. I wouldn't call it a hardcore match. And then we had the no disqualification match with Lance Archer that got a little hardcore. And then you could even say the Brody Lee match because he put him through the ramp and there was that spot. But other than that, people are selling him down the river that he hasn't just wrestled matches.
Are we calling that hardcore now, though? Is that what hardcore is? Because the hardcore that I remember from hearing hardcore match back in the day is baseball bats of barbed wire that's on fire and going through fire tables.
Right.
Like you had fire, glass, light bulbs. That's what hardcore used to mean. Going through a ramp and using a chair in a no disqualification match where you take the match outside of the ring and you throw somebody over a row of seats.
That's not
hardcore.
I agree 100%.
You're not having a hardcore match by doing that. You're having a no disqualification. Basically falls count anywhere, right? Is what that is.
And I think by your description, the only match he's had that is an actual true hardcore match was the Kenny Omega Lights Out match.
Right.
And I think, no, he had a Joey Janela match, didn't he? Or no, that was Omega. That was Omega.
Yeah.
But people are selling him down the river that he hasn't had good matches, and it kills me because they're totally forgetting his. What about the number 1 contendership match against Pac?
Right.
Awesome match. What about the match against Trent way back on the Homecoming edition of Dynamite? Great match. Let's talk about the match with Christopher Daniels he had on the Jericho Cruise.
Yeah.
Good, solid match. Let's talk about the 2 back-to-back matches with Santana and Ortiz. He had singles matches against both of those guys leading into the Jericho feud. Good, just 10-minute solid matches, okay? Let's keep it rolling. The match he had against Frankie Kazarian. Awesome. Frankie's such a good worker. They had a solid match. Let's talk about the match he had with Brian Cage.
Yeah. For
a big guy, that it ended in the towel being thrown in. Good solid match and more more recently, a good psychological match. That match against MJF was highly underrated.
Yeah. I mean, look, bottom line is, come on. He's not only there to have hardcore death matches. You're missing a lot of what Jon Moxley is.
Well, what it is, they, say they have this good Matt Classic match with MJF, Moxley and MJF, but MJF got busted open. So if they see blood,
Yeah.
they instantly lump that in with that CCW death match. It's like, dude, there's levels to this shit.
But here's another question though. The people that are saying this, are they watching or are they hearing about this stuff? Because obviously they're not watching if they don't remember the Kazarian match, the Santana and Ortiz singles matches. You don't remember that stuff if you're only picking out the matches that have a stipulation or blood in it.
Well, I agree. And if they are watching, they're watching with their heels dug into the sand because they've spent 20 to 30 years of their life supporting a product up north. And now that there's this new company,
yep,
instead of just watching it because it's wrestling and being unbiased and watching it, they dig their heels in. And I guess we could be accused of shitting on WWE, but what I would say to that is we've spent 30 plus years watching WWE. We've given our life and our love to that company, and that company is the reason we love pro wrestling. And I'll always have time for that company to prove me wrong. But what I'm not going to do is just continue to watch something that I don't enjoy, that I've watched for 30 years. What I appreciate that there is an alternative.
Yeah, and what people that are only watching WWE, what they forget is that there was WCW back in the day too. And I guarantee you they watched that also.
Oh yeah. ECW.
So, yeah. There's other products out there. Just because a company's a year in, don't discredit what they're doing and just throw them under the bus all the time.
Yeah, it's not a WWE can take the shots. Yeah. They've been they're the monolith of the wrestling world. Some of the younger companies, man, they need your support.
Yeah.
They need we need those companies to help WWE improve because they need the improvement. They're kind of on autopilot outside of a few angles. But back to the original question, Jon Moxley to me is a bona fide main eventer. Yeah. Dean Ambrose never was a bona fide main eventer, not because he didn't have the talent, but because the booking and the people above him wouldn't allow him to be that main eventer because they wanted to script everything he did. That's another thing. Who's a better promo, Dean Ambrose or Jon Moxley? A scripted shit promo or something off the top of his head? Jon Moxley is solid.
Yeah.
With the stick.
I don't think that's not even a question. You can't compare a Dean Ambrose promo to a Jon Moxley promo. Jon Moxley wins that all day.
Yeah. So matches, yeah. I'm going with Moxley. Promos, yep. I'm going with Moxley. I think I'm going with Moxley over Ambrose.
Yeah, I do. I go with that also. I mean, it's honestly not really that hard. You guys leave a comment in the comment section. Let us know who wins this match for you and let us know why that person wins the match.